Hello, my name is Naylin, and I decided to discuss portrayals of women in media for the article that I wanted to go ahead and uh, explore. So I decided to choose the article written by Manola Dargis, Women Watching Women Watching Women. So essentially, this article dives into several topics surrounding and relating primarily to women and media film production, and also really the ever-evolving representation of women in media and how film is changing its tone in regards to how we portray women on the screen. Um, it dives from issues so much so as violence within film production and in our history, um, and the sexual objectification of women, also how women are finally getting behind the camera, and the fact that while we are behind the camera more often, we're certainly not able to reach spaces where women can receive the recognition they deserve. There's still a tangible and noticeable disproportionate level of misogyny within the film industry. Um, and the article also dives into certain works of art that touch on things such as the ageist beauty standards that women often uphold themselves to and explore more feminist themes and ideology. Given that this is an article that really dives into women in media film production and portrayals of women, I think the topics that are the most relevant would be both Chapter 3, Images of Women, and Chapter 10, Work and Achievement. With Chapter 3, we can explore correlations such as the objectification of women, which the article does briefly speak about, and the devaluation of female characters in cinematic works of art. With Chapter 10, Work and Achievement, the article discusses how women are not given as many opportunities within the film industry and how we often have to seek out independent backing, which naturally, as we know, independent films or as they're known, indie films, are often not really likely to go into the mainstream and be eligible for prestigious awards like Oscars, etc. Um, Images of women as a concept encompasses a plethora of historical and ongoing issues within representation of women in the media and filmmaking. More importantly, the sexual objectification of women's bodies and the frequency at which it happens. Female characters within movies and shows are often known to be vapid and superficial. They're not given a lot of depth, not much development, very stagnant within their roles. It negates the idea that women are complex, intelligent, and um, possess more capabilities than thought or assumed. An interesting method of testing for this is the Bechdel test. It's sort of a tool that essentially measures if female characters in a film are given meaningful representation. It consists of three questions, which need to be, which are essentially the criteria in order to pass the Bechdel test. The first question is, does it contain two or more named female characters? Do they talk to each other? And if so, do they discuss something other than a man? Even for things as trivial as commercial ads, women are still portrayed in a sexual light, even though the product that they are advertising has nothing to do with sexuality or bodies or anything in relation to it. In most cases, we can see that products that are targeted towards women are often designed to convince women. It'll help them achieve a more youthful look, which again, perpetuates the notion that as women age, not only do we lose beauty, but we lose value. The article dives into this discussion when they bring light to a cinematic work of art that touches on themes of aging, which is The Last Showgirl. It's a movie that touches on the commodification of beauty, and the role that we as women play in our own objectification. The main protagonist, she is an older woman who is learning to sort of deal with her aging and what it means for her as a showgirl. and the sort of role or the costume that she plays, which is a more old-fashioned type of beauty. So it sort of represents how she is stuck within her own youth, and that's her interpretation of her beauty. More specifically, how we relate and associate our value to our youth and our beauty. It's touching on topics like these is a more modern concept within the world of filmmaking that I think we're just now looking at on the big screen and exploring. And the fact that it's directed by a woman also supports the fact that we need to bring more women's voices within the film production world. Within the world of filmmaking and production, we work and achievement entails access to opportunity, or really lack thereof, for women. Aside from the well-known wage gap, there is also an extreme opportunity gap where access to directing opportunities and production opportunities are just not available to women. It could even be a case of vertical segregation, which, as we know, it's vertical segregation consists of essentially um, since it seems as though within the filmmaking industry and directing and production positions and opportunities, there are far fewer women than there are men. It's really become a connections game where it's difficult for women to even attempt to play because they're already starting farther back than their male counterparts. The article mentions specifically how the number of female directors has remained frustratingly low. Up until recently, we've seen more works of art by directors such as Barbie and The Last Showgirl, as previously mentioned. Um, and they have both touched on issues that many were hesitant to bring onto the big screen, such as more modern feminism and giving more depth to female characters than we've seen previously. She goes on to say that the fact that it is an industry issue, and luckily, just now we're starting to see the scales balance out. In many occupations, though, we know that women experience what's often called sort of an exclusion from the boys' club, where being an outsider usually results in less access to promotion and advancement opportunities, especially within the executive branches of uh, corporate, basically. I think future considerations that we can look into would be specifically for production companies to have a minimum diversity requirement, which I understand in and of itself would be a difficult feat to accomplish, but this essentially would force production companies to open the door and give access to women so that they can be in more directing positions and production positions as well. Um, I also think in order to balance sort of the uneven scales that women have been dealt for several decades, if not since we've known really, um, I think it would be beneficial for us to sort of band together within these professional spheres and almost create a women's club. It doesn't have to be, I would say, obnoxious in nature, but more so that women can uplift women in a professional manner in the same way that men do for other men, um, which results in excluding us from opportunities and success as a result. I think in order for us to be able to finally see a real meaningful difference within our professional advancements, we have to help each other because we can't rely on men to do that for us, since they've, as we've seen, have not been willing up until more recently, which we've seen sort of a shift, which is why really we're seeing the women in the filmmaking sphere as we are now. But as I said, we need to make more room for each other and try to uplift women as much as possible.